Hello, everyone. Happy Friday, happy Saturday, happy weekend, wherever you are. This is USA Global TV and Radio, and I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. I'm the president, founder, and chief listening officer here at our network where we do celebrate elevated listening. Our show today is Authentic Achievements, and we have a very interesting topic. Our topic is Should all kids get trophies, regardless of performance? So, to explore this with me is an outstanding coach, mentor, and a mother who is going to have her own perspective based on her work with her clients, as well as being a mom. Let's welcome Kim-ADELE'S Randall to the show.
Hi, Dr. Jacalyn.
Hi, so nice to see you today. And I said backstage, we look like twins.
I know, we clearly got the memo, didn't we?
Yes, well, I'm super excited to be here with you today and to talk about this subject. And Kim-ADELE, as I had mentioned to, and some of our viewers may know, but I sold employee recognition and sales incentive programs for almost 20 years. So all about the award, the trophy, coming on stage, earning points, getting trips. And I personally have always been chasing gold stars my whole life. So I really am a big advocate of trophies. But what I heard toward the end of my corporate career was that people were really wondering, do any of these things matter if we're giving them out to make people feel better? So Susie didn't earn the gold star. She was just short, but we give her a trophy for being close. So are we setting our kids up to fail, or are we actually motivating them and encouraging them to keep going? What are your thoughts?
Oh, it's such a great question. And yeah, we were chatting, weren't we, backstage, where I think nearly 20 years ago, I worked for one of the big banks. And when we got new hires that came through training, obviously when they first went live, they wouldn't be at the same level as everybody else. But we wanted them to, to recognize that they'd come through their training, they'd met the requirements that we'd got. So I created these made at home with my own little dodgy printer, these certificates to say that you'd graduated the DEN, which was our developing and enhancing new hires. And they've got Chucky from the Rugrats on. I mean, I'm just explaining quite how ridiculous these certificates were, and people loved them. And they got, we did a pizza party and introduced them to the team and everything. And then I ended up with uproar because all the people that had been there for years came over and went, "Well, I don't have one on my desk." And I was like, "Well, I could print you one if you'd like me to, but they are just a piece of paper with a Chucky doll on." And they were like, "That'd be great, Kim, if you could." So I ended up to print I think 214 of these and bring them in to give to people because it had such an impact. And I think it's hard, isn't it? We want to drive the right behavior, but equally we've got to acknowledge that sometimes people aren't going to all be the top achievers. So again, in that same organization, I was responsible for driving the performance of the whole team. And the awards and the incentives were great for my top performers, but for my bottom performers, actually, they knew they were never going to get them. They were never going to be able to achieve. So actually, it became a demotivator instead of a motivator. So one of the things that we started to implement back then, and we're talking a lot of years ago now, was you got points for obviously being the best. So your top performer won points, but you could also start to earn points for being the most improved. So that actually what we were trying to do was move that bottom quartile up so that we were actually performing significantly more overall as a team. And I think as long as we're very clear on what we're giving people the award for, then I think that still works quite well. And I know in particular in that particular organization, it worked brilliantly. And when I went on to work at Sage, we did if you achieved a particular thing, you got a raffle ticket, but your raffle tickets were only worth anything if at the end of the month you'd actually achieved the requirements of the role, and then your raffle tickets went in. Now, if you were our top performer, you had a lot of raffle tickets, whereas if you were one of our lower performers, you might only have one or two, but you still had a chance. And that opportunity, that chance, that keeping us focused on the hope rather than starting the month and realizing that there's nothing in it for you, actually drove the performance of the entire team. So we went quarter after quarter of double-digit growth because Our top performers were getting more and more chances to win and get recognised, but our more ad hoc performers were being motivated to keep going, to keep trying, to improve, I guess.
Thanks so much, Kim-Adele. You brought up a lot of really good points. And we do have a comment from one of our dear friends here, Joe Del Campo. Hi, Joe. Nice to have you with us today. Joe writes, I don't believe every kid should. I believe it inspires a competitive drive and a will to succeed in later life. And he writes respectfully. So yeah, that's a great point. You know, something that I want to bring up is when we were putting together these programs when I was in corporate, the programs to drive behavior change, one thing that we found, and this is fairly well known, is that your top performers are going to continuously get all the awards. So they're winning the trips, they're getting the points, they're getting the Rolexes, and they're getting the grills and everything else. And then the people at the bottom, you know, they're just basically existing. But the people in the middle are discouraged because they know those top performers are going to get all of the accolades and they're still there. So what can you do to drive behavior change with that group of people? So we will put together a program specifically for the middle 60s, so to speak. Yeah. We've got another comment from Randy Sue. Hi, Randy. How are you? Nice to have you with us today. I always felt giving participation awards to everyone was a problem. Life does not work that way later on. Not everyone gets the job they apply for. Not everyone gets into the Ivy League universities, etc. Kids are then ill-equipped to accept that later in life because they were always awarded for their performance for just showing up or being part of the group. Great point, Randy. Thank you so much.
And I think it's that balance, isn't it? I think it's I think just having an award for turning up doesn't help, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people to strive to be the best version of themselves. However, if we only do it for the top performers, for some of those people that can't do it, they're going to give up trying because it's unachievable. You know, I always think back to a lady I had once, and our target for the day was 8 sales, and she couldn't do more than 1, bless her. So she came in this one particular day, and I said, your target for today is 2 sales. And she was, Kim, it's supposed to be 8. I went, your target for today is 2. You get 2, and we get to go out and like, you know, and it's been a really, really good day. So I'll be really honest with you. You get to 2, tomorrow you're going to go to 3. But for today, 2 is what I'm looking for. And she says, well, you won't hit your team target. I went, I will, because these 2 are going head to head. And they average 12 a day. But we've got a prize on for whichever one of them gets to 15. So they're going to pick up your slack. But I needed to get her playing away from a 0 so that actually she'd got some drive, she'd got some motivation. Now, what we did, we were very clear that the prizes that the people got that were getting the 15 were significantly bigger than whatever acknowledgement she was going to get for getting 1 or 2. But within a very short period, I think it took us probably about 3 weeks, I moved her from averaging 1 sale a day to hitting the 8 I needed. But I'd have never done that if I'd have told her every day she needed 8, because she'd have gone home every day as a failure. So I think we've got to be cognizant of that, and then say, yes, we shouldn't just give everybody an award because they turned up, but where they've turned up and they've really tried, they've really striven to be the best version of themselves. If we don't give them any acknowledgement of that, how do we keep them motivated to keep trying? And I often use the analogy of if you were to climb Mount Everest, there is camps along the way for a number of reasons, but one of them is also to allow you to see how far you've come, to give you the motivation to keep going. So I think it's one of those, it's really hard to get right. I think participation, just because you've participated, you're right, doesn't help, because life doesn't work like that later on. But getting something to acknowledge that you've really made inroads into becoming the best version of yourself. You've not just shown up, but you've achieved something significantly greater than you'd achieved before, that you've continued to improve. I think if we don't acknowledge that, then actually what we're going to do is have people think that there's just no point.
Thanks for sharing that story and for that wonderful outcome that came for that person and for your team hitting the numbers. So, I want to look at a different perspective
Mm.
because I think what we're really talking about today is when someone is young and impressionable and they're learning the basis of behavior, do this, get that. That's how I was brought up. Do your chores, get this. And I still have that mindset. And I'm very disappointed when I do this and I don't get that. And I have to say to myself, okay, but that's not reality. So, what if you are one of the top performers? You are one of the top achievers. Your daughter just won a number of awards. So, what if she gets disenchanted because her other classmates are now getting similar awards or other awards? Does that take what she's earned and make it of less value? Or are we basically saying, hey, Scarlett, you were really good in this, and Susie's trying really hard at that, and Bobby's doing really well at this. Let's give everybody a piece of the pie. Is the pie still that valuable?
It's really hard, isn't it? Because I think it's particularly for children, they take it so personally, and you know, even down to walking back from school. I mean, seriously, we can get a competition about just about everything. It's like when I got there faster, I got there slower. I wasn't even running, and you're like, oh my goodness, we were just walking home from school. How have we managed to get into like, you know, this level of debate about it? Because there's that desire to be the best. And I guess some of it is in looking at it and saying, you know, well, what is your main aim? What is it that we're really striving for you to achieve? And you know, for me personally, and this is just a personal opinion, I'm not saying that this is the same for everybody. My goal in life is to be the best version of me, and that means that my competition is myself yesterday. It's like, what was I doing yesterday, and how do I get to be the best version of me? Because there are certain things that I'm never going to be very good at. And I could try at them, and I'll probably at best be mediocre, but I don't enjoy them anyway, and they don't light me up. So why do we have this drive to push everybody to be an all-rounder instead of being able to say, well, what makes your soul sing? You know, if I look at my little girl, and yes, she's just won a whole array of things, but all of them are things that bring her joy. So it was gymnastics, it was swimming, and it was actually kindness and independence. So she got star of the school because she's so kind and she's so determined to try and to be the best version of herself that she can be. And they're the things that she loves, and I think that they're going to set her up in a really good place for when she's older. But I think when we're thinking about kind of, you're right, if everybody gets the same award, whatever it is that they've achieved, then the award's going to lose its meaning. I think for me, it's about identifying those opportunities to say, you know, what are the stages, you know, what are the stages along the way? What are the steps that we can give to help achieve? And what was lovely when I went into her star of the school, there was another little boy actually who was also achieving an award, and his award was for never giving up. And he has some learning difficulties. English isn't his first language, so he might not be the top performer any of the things academically, but you just had to see the pride that it filled him with and the drive that he'd got to want to get back there. And you know, I'm one of the trustees at the school, so I also know kind of, you know, what happened afterwards, and what's lovely is the impact that had not just on him but on some of the other children that were in similar situations to him, that were able to go, well, if he can, maybe I can. Whereas when they were looking at perhaps some of the other children, they were like, I'm never going to. And I think that some point we've got to make a change so that we can help people to break out of the cycles that they get themselves into, where they repeat the history. You know, we see lots of people from underprivileged areas repeat the history of their families. We see a few of them break out and do things differently. But it's like, what can we do to help still drive that competitive edge, but also allow people to change their outcome if it's not one that's actually going to serve them?
Great points. Really, I love how you just drilled down on all of that. Thank you. And we've heard a number of times on this show and on other shows on this platform that someone as a young child was pretty much stymied by their teacher, an educator, somebody, gym teacher. You're not good enough at that. You can't do that. You'll never be. And they kept that and embraced that because that's what somebody in a position of authority told them, and really messed them up with their confidence and the approach that they took. And my dad, may he rest in peace, he always would say, you can never be too rich or too thin. And of course, my life, I've always had issues about money, about being worth enough and what is enough, and about my weight. I, to this day, 59, I still can't stand my weight and I'm obsessed with it. So he put that into my head, not knowing what it was going to do. So I think when we're so young and impressionable, it does make a big difference. What is the message that we're sending? Because when we are innocent and young and we're looking to our adults, you know, we recognize them as people who have the power and the authority, and we're telling them something to keep them back, then that can affect them for the rest of their lives.
Oh.
We've got another couple of comments. Thank you, Randy Sue. I agree. Individual positive feedback and constructive feedback is necessary more than awards. Individual accolades spread around is a good idea, but that takes work and skill by the person giving it out. Very good point. Mentor, teacher, boss, personal best is key. And she also writes, I love your program. Great conversation. Thank you. And thank you for being part of it. So she makes a great point there. The person giving the feedback has to know how to do that. Because if you're giving someone an award, and it could be a spot award, you see somebody doing certain thing, you see a child in a game and just got ran to a base, you know, whatever it might be. If you give that feedback in such a way, it can be construed as negative. So, hey, Charlie, it's great that you made it to second base, but it's a shame you didn't get to third. You know, Bob made it all around. You know, that kind of information is like, oh, great, but no, that's good, but not good enough.
We see it all the time, and as you said, and all great points that were raised, because I think it's in the power of how we do it. And you know, as a British person, we're dreadful at feedback. So if you do something that I don't like, oh, you'll know all about it. So I'll tell you what you did, I'll tell you when you did it, I'll tell you what it made me feel like. I mean, you'll get War and Peace. So you know exactly what it is that you don't need to do in the future. And I see this all the time in organizations. But if you do something well, we'll go, hey, Dr. Jacqueline, good job. Well, what was good? Specifically, what did you do that was good, and what impact did it have, and how do you know to repeat that? So I agree. The benefit of how of learning how to do this well and making sure that we are really passing on what we want the person to take away to do more of is so crucial. And I also think, you know, as you said, Dr. Jacqueline, we have to be so very careful that the things that we say, people carry into their future. I spent many years fixing myself from all of the things I carried from my past about, you know, not being good enough or not being worthy, that I carried into my future and made them my reality. And I now spend a lot of time with people doing exactly the same thing. So I think, you know, helping understand that actually it's about giving them the positive encouragement. It's not making stuff up. It's not saying they've done something great if they haven't, but it could just be, you know, what's better this time than last time? Where is it you want them to focus on? What is it you want them to repeat? So that they know what it is that they need to do more of, or what it is that they need to do less of. And because again, we abdicate our responsibility to share exactly what it is that we're giving them feedback on. And I think once we get that, that's so important. And you know, this week, and I guess it's probably why it's so pertinent to me at the moment, I'm very proud to say that I have just passed my level 2 in understanding children and young adolescents' mental health. And there's a huge element that sits within there around making sure that we're providing them with constructive feedback, whether that's positive, keep doing more of it, or constructive, do you understand what went on here, and creating those safe spaces. Because actually, if we can help them when they're children, when they're young adolescents, it is proven that we can reduce the impact on adult mental health challenges later on. So I think it's got a huge part to play in how we show up for our communities and how we create the right environment for the communities today and the communities of the future.
Congratulations, Kim-Adele. That's huge.
Thank you.
I love it. Fantastic. Something that you talk about on a regular basis here, especially when you're speaking about your daughter, is you'll say, not yet. She'll say, Mommy, I'm not good at this, not yet. And what I think is also important is the use of that not yet, it gives hope and inspiration. I also like to think back to my past when someone has said to me, I see something in you. I don't know that you see it. In fact, even when I started this platform, I had two people, one from Israel and one from the UK, who were really very well known in their industries, reach out to me and say, you have something. And I didn't even see what it was. But the point is that if somebody can see something in another person and share it with them, especially a child, that gives great hope and inspiration that, hey, I am able to do something. I will be really good at this. Thank you for seeing that. Thank you for supporting me and being a cheerleader, as opposed to you're never going to be good at that. So I don't know if it's a matter of everyone has to have a trophy in terms of something physical, but I like the idea of a trophy in terms of something that we share from our heart to encourage someone.
Oh, I love that. And I think you're right. I think it's less about everybody having the physical trophy and more about everyone having the emotional trophy, because it's the emotional trophy that we carry forward into our future. And it's what we build our belief on. And belief, I always talk about beliefs being like a tabletop. So, somebody tells you something that you're good at this, or that you think that you're good at this, or you're not good at this, or whatever. Every time you get an example, you get another leg on that table until that is the most stable table you're ever going to have. And that belief becomes part of your blueprint. It's how you see yourself, it's how you define yourself. And how many of us as adults have beliefs that don't serve us, that aren't things that we actually want to believe are true about ourselves. And we live in a world of polarity. For every up, there's a down. For every left, there's a right. For everything we believe about ourselves, the opposite is also true. We just have to be able to make the change and do the work to be able to make that change. And I think if we can create that emotional trophy for our children, then hopefully we will change the current dynamic, which is where we have lots of people at my age going back and trying to work out how to fix what they've told themselves for so many years, that actually in hindsight might not be the truth. It's just a truth, and not a truth that well serves us. So I think we've got to make sure that we're clear that we're not muddling the two up. And it sometimes can be easy to give a physical thing because it takes a lot less effort and a lot less skill to give somebody something physical than it does to take the time to create the emotional memory that they can then rely on in their future.
So true. And of course, always spot on, Kim-Adele. When I was growing up, social media wasn't what it was today. I don't even know if we had it. I'm trying to remember back that long ago. I don't think so. But you would go to school and it was brutal. There were all these groups, and if you didn't fit into a clique or a group, and self-esteem wise, it was really difficult. Now the kids today, they have all this access to technology and social media. I just was reading an article last night about a new study that the pandemic has had a major impact on teenagers' brains. So when we think about everything that the younger generations have just gone through or continuing to go through and still trying to find their way and feel good about themselves and find their path, it's so difficult. And so I honor you and all the parents out there who are going through this. How would you say things are different today from when you were growing up? You're raising a child. How are they different than when you were growing up?
Oh, what a great question. And you're right. I mean, things have changed so much, haven't they? I mean, when I was at school, if somebody wanted to bully me, they'd have to phone my parents and ask to be put on the phone. So funnily enough, nobody did that outside of school. So if you weren't in the right clique, if you were on the brunt of somebody else's anxiety or anger, then actually it was pretty contained into your working day, your school working day. And I guess I was very lucky. I lived in a little village where there was nobody else, and we got bussed in to another village to go to school. But you didn't have that always on pressure. Whereas I look at it now with my nieces and nephews, and even with my little girl and her friends, and they're so little, but it's that always on mentality. It's that brutality around if you fit in or you don't fit in, if if you look the same as everybody else, if you don't look the same as everybody else, is still there. But there's no reprieve, there's no switch off from it, there's no opportunity for you to get that downtime, unless as parents we step in and we create some of that downtime and we create that space. And I always look at it with Scarlett as a kind of positivity bank balance. So there's going to be lots of people in her day that are going to make withdrawals against her positivity bank account, that are going to tell her that her colouring wasn't good enough, or that her writing wasn't as neat as theirs, because actually they're just feeling sad and frustrated about themselves and about where theirs are. So I try and make sure every day that I'm filling up her positivity bank account with things that are honest, authentic, and genuine. So I can say to her, I'm really grateful to you because you helped Mummy do these things, and this is the impact it had on me. And that was really great. Well, I'm really proud of you today because your teacher said that you've been really kind to people. So I guess I try and every day make sure that we're sitting down and we're talking through what we're grateful for, what we appreciate, and what I'd like to thank her for bringing into the world, so that she gets that top up of positivity, because there's enough people out there that are going to do withdrawals. And I think that's true of all of us. It's true of us as adults. And maybe we could start doing that for each other as much as we could for our children. But I think that's one of the things that is crucial, is that we create that environment to give them the opportunity to build resilience, so that it's not just another chink of something else that's not going right, because that can get very depressing very quickly.
I love that. What you're doing is breaking that pattern. And as you know, as we get older, we've been living through the same kind of patterns, different people coming in and out of our lives, not feeling good enough about ourselves because it started when we were young, when somebody told us something. And then for whatever reason, we're drawn to that same kind of person to bash us over the head again, so that we can get to be a certain age and go, okay, I need therapy, I need help, I need something. So.
It's so true, though, isn't it? But because that's how we learn what love is. Because the people that have said those things to us are the people that love us most in the world, and we know that they wouldn't knowingly do it to harm us. The fact is, very often they're repeating their own cycle of how they were brought up and how they were brought up and how they were brought up, and the cycle never breaks until you're able to look at it. I was always concerned that if I wasn't perfect, that I would be unlovable. And you can't be perfect. None of us are perfect. We are perfectly imperfect. But I'd spend all my time going, oh, you're not pretty enough, you're not bright enough, you're not intelligent enough, you're just not enough. Just not enough of anything, apart from all the things you don't want to be. And that's not a great place to live in, for anybody. But I see that, I see that all the time. And then, I mean, how many times have we heard our friends say, if only you could see what we could see? I wish you could just see yourself how we saw you. And so one of the kind of things I've learned to do in the last few years is borrow other people's view of me. So, if they see me as being like, okay, nice enough to know, a good friend, then why can't I choose to see that in myself? And so I kind of started to flip the switch to go, I trust their opinion more than I trust mine. So I'm going to borrow their opinion because I like it better than my own opinion, and see where that is. But then by default go, how can I be the same positivity mirror to the people I meet? How can I give them that overt piece of tell them what I see, tell them the good stuff that I see, because that might just be the thing that gets them through. And that can be at any age. It can be from being a child all the way through to being an adult. You never know where a word of kindness, a word of positivity, a word of encouragement is going to change the landscape of that person's day and potentially that person's life.
It's so true. And just because you don't get the feedback from that person, that doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean that they're still not taking it in. They just don't know how to respond. I know myself, I do a lot of walking, and the same circle, I've been walking for 4 years. Sometimes I see the same people and I always say hello. Sometimes people don't say anything. And it used to bother me. And then I thought, you know what? I don't know what they're going through. And it doesn't matter. I'm saying hello. It's nice to see you. Good morning. And they're not responding. So that's on them. But doing that kindness might impact them later on in their day. They might think about it and it might change something. So I think it's really important. And I think also what we're talking about is how we treat children, what we tell children, and even older adults. If you think about senior citizens, for example, which I like to call seasoned citizens, you have somebody that lived their whole life being productive and accomplished, and then they get to be some age, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're just old. I don't want to. And we see this happen in other cultures. I don't know how it is there in the UK, but in other cultures, when you get to be a certain age, you're respected and revered and people look up to you. But I find here in the States, especially I'm in Florida, that when you get to be a certain age, people are just, get out of my way, buddy, or, you've had your day. And it's really sad.
It is. It's so sad. And you're right. It does change by cultures, but we're so busy being busy. And I was talking to a friend earlier this week, and he reminded me of the Cats in the Cradle song. And he said he plays that to himself all of the time to remind himself that he doesn't want to be that dad. That he wants to remember now he has to put the time in. He has to, I say to my friends all the time, my little girl is spoiled by my presence, as in I'm with her, not by my presence, the things I buy her, because actually that's the thing she values the most. And there are things that children do that frustrate the living daylights out of us as adults. So things like, you're really desperate to go on the school run and you need them to put their shoes on. If this resonates with anybody watching or listening, but they don't do it, do they? They'll come up with anything to not put those shoes on. And it can drive you to distraction. You're thinking about the commute, you've got to do the drive, you've got to get on the school run, you've got all these things that you've got to do. Until I learned what it is, that the reason why they do that, they do it as a sign of love. Now, it might be the biggest frustrating thing that they can do for you as a parent, but as a child, they understand that when those shoes go on, they're going to leave the house. They're going to distance themselves from you, and you're their world. So they want it to be as slow as humanly possible, because they're trying to cling on to that moment with you. And I try and remind myself of that all the time. And don't get me wrong, I often get it wrong. I'm like, seriously, put your shoes on. We're late. We've got to get out. We've got to see your friends. But I do try and remind myself that actually this is one of her acts of love. We talk about our love languages, but for children, their love languages can be slightly obscure in comparison to our own, in that the things that they do, which is to get more time with us, possibly lead us to feel very frustrated.
That was beautiful. I love that analogy about the presence.
Thank you.
So what I'm really taking away from our show today is that the trophies that are the most valuable are the emotional trophies. That's what it is. Knowing that, and we talk about this too, elevated listening, knowing that someone is giving us a safe space to share and they're not judging us. And that's what I think has been going on for so long, that really needs to be stopped and evaluated, is the judgment. You're not good enough. You never will be. How do you know? How do you know what somebody's going to be? How do you know? And we just go by what we've experienced, by what we're seeing at a moment in time. but everything changes, as you know, except for the IRS and dying. But uh, so we don't have the right to put somebody at a stop sign and say, no, you can't, because this is what I see. So I would really encourage all of us to just look at our own lives and how are we taking what we're frustrated with, maybe what we locked away years ago, and putting that on somebody else because we haven't dealt with our own stuff.
No, I love that. It's such a great point, because we project out the things that actually we believe to be ourselves. I'm dreadful for it. I do it all the time. I decide everybody else has got certain opinions about me, which, if I'm really honest, are the ones I've got about myself that I don't like. So I'll go, oh, everyone thinks I'm hopeless, or everyone thinks that I'm not good at this, or I've got nothing valuable to say, I've not got any of these things, which actually I know are me in my moments of doubt. It's how I feel about myself. And it's like, well, you don't know what they think. And what they think is none of your business. That's their opinion. That's their business, not your business. So your business is to acknowledge what you think about you and what you think about the situation, and how do you change that if it's something that isn't something that's making you proud.
Yeah, it's so true. And I want to give a personal share, and I've shared this with you before, but I have ulcerative colitis, and that's really been something that I've had to deal with for 30 some years, and it's affected my confidence in every way. Anyway, long story short, one of our team members here, Red O'Laughlin, he's a longevity strategist. He has a couple of shows and he talks about things that people can do. So I really believe in what he said. So I started doing all the things that he said. And prior to that, I'd given up caffeine and sugar, and I gave up alcohol, and I was fasting. And long story short, about 3 weeks ago, I had to go for a colonoscopy. And the doctor said, before we started, he's like, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing really well. I feel great. And he said, what do you attribute it to? And I said, I attribute it to my healthy lifestyle. And then after the test was over, he's like, this was a disaster. You don't have cancer, but it's not a good. And anyway, where I'm going with this is my self-esteem in that moment was shattered, because I was doing all the right things and I didn't get the gold star that I felt like I should have gotten. And instead, I felt like I got an F or a D. And as it turns out, when the pathology reports came back, they were nowhere near what he said. So I actually went through this whole emotional roller coaster, feeling like, but wait, I did all the right things. I got all the check marks. Why didn't I get the gold star? Then I got the F, and then I kind of got like a B. But then all the work that I had already done, I felt was for nothing. So my point is, one comment from someone, which wasn't even based on actual medical facts, completely took me for a nosedive. And I'm 59. So imagine if you're a young child and somebody gives you some kind of information that can just set you back for decades of your life. I just think we have to be so careful about what we are saying to each other as adults, also people in positions of authority, and obviously people who are parents, and people who are caregivers or educators or have influence on children's lives.
So it's so true. It's we can so quickly destroy somebody else's, not just day, but a lot longer than that, if we are lacking in thought in how we put that across, in how we position it, in how we get it over there. And we'll all have had those moments, sadly, where somebody did that to us, where somebody was careless or lacked thought in how they shared some information with us, and the impact it can have on us for a long time. So I think, taking those moments to go, how's this going to land? How would, if I had to hear this information, how would that best be delivered for me, so that I can actually deal with that, come to terms with, understand what it is I'm supposed to do with it. It's like, what's its purpose? And because we sometimes throw away we chuck out these throwaway comments, and we don't mean to, and then people will play them back to us like later on. You're like, oh my goodness, no, that's not even what I meant. It's like you've taken it over here. To your point, Dr. Jacqueline, you've done all of those things. You'd made all of those sacrifices to give up caffeine and sugar and alcohol, and all of those things. That, and then actually for it to have been met with, well, okay, that's nice try, but it's not there, can totally deflate us, because we think, well, what else am I supposed to do? I've literally done everything you asked me to do, and it's still not enough. It's still not good enough. I'm still not able to get that gold star. It can actually completely pull the rug out from under us. Whereas I think if we take those moments to acknowledge that and go, well, that's great, because even though things aren't looking fantastic here, imagine what they would have looked like if you hadn't taken all of those steps. So, you know, you've put yourself in the best place that you possibly can. It's a slight change in what was said, but the impact it's going to have on people is going to be significant.
Absolutely. And I just want to announce that I am now drinking caffeine and eating sugar again. I got to start all over. But you know what, Kim-Adele, what I think is also a key takeaway is it depends on how the information is delivered, which is also a part of our next show, which I just want to bring in, etiquette and manners. It's how we speak to each other. If that doctor had said to me, you know what, I'd like to learn more about how those behavior changes have impacted your life. He doesn't know how psychologically or weight wise I lost 10 pounds. Like there's a lot of great things that came from that, but he didn't even take the time. He just gave me this very methodical, you know, kind of comment. And so my point is that etiquette and manners are so much more than how to set a table or open a door. It's how we treat each other. And if we put ourselves in the other person's shoes and think about, okay, I'm going to give this information. How is it going to be received? And of course, we could have a whole other show about this, but in the medical community, you know, I know that physicians and nurses and healthcare practitioners, they're under so much pressure. They only have a limited amount of time to see people. They want to give the information and then they've got to go on to the next. So I understand that. But also, we are just human beings and we want to feel safe. We want to feel worthy. And so how we show up for each other makes a big difference. So I would just encourage everyone to think about what are etiquette and manners, what is emotional intelligence, what is respect. I love the fact that Scarlett won an award for kindness. I mean, that's beautiful.
I know, it's amazing. She is the kindest little girl, and kindness is one of the things that we value most in our house. So we talk about it all the time. And the fact that, you know, doesn't mean to say you can't ever disagree with people or have a difference of opinion, but you do it with kindness. You think about, you know, I'm a big believer in it's impact versus intent. So I don't believe anybody intends to get things wrong. Anybody intends to do the wrong thing. There's an exception to every rule. Every time I say this, somebody will remind me about serial killers, and I'm like, okay, maybe they intended it. But in the main, I think people's intentions are honourable. So when they get things wrong, when we say something that offends somebody, or we do something that didn't go as well as we wanted it to, it wasn't because we set out to get it wrong. So when we're giving feedback, if we can start with their intention, so I think you were trying to do a great thing, I think you were trying to be an amazing team member, I think you were trying to achieve this goal, am I right? Yes. Brilliant, because that's exactly what I want you to do. What I need to talk to you about is, whilst that's what you were trying to do, can I help you understand what actually happened? So that was your intention, but this is your impact. You're now an ally. You're not attacking them. You're not making them feel that you think that they were stupid or that they were thoughtless or inconsiderate, because you know what their intention was. Now all you're going to do is help them get out of their own way, because we all get in our own way. So I think how we deliver information is probably the most crucial skill.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. And you have delivered a wonderful amount of information that is on point and just, whoa, hello.
Pudding decided to join us.
Let's see Pudding. Hi, Pudding.
You're going to come and say hi. Come and say hi.
Oh, Pudding, how are you today? What a cutie.
Thank you.
Pudding's enjoying the conversation as well. So, Kim-Adele, as we close out the show, what is some advice that you can give as a coach and also as a parent?
I think with all of it is just think about actually how can I share whatever it is I need to share with kindness. So how is it going to best land? And if this were me, how would I like to hear it? Or if this were somebody I loved, how would I like to deliver it? I think taking that moment to think about how it's going to land allows you to, one, not have to go back and say you're sorry. You know, I'm a big believer in, if I'm not able to come up with a response that's going to make me proud, I probably shouldn't come up with the response. And therefore I will take a moment and say, can I come back to you on that? Because right now I need to think differently. I need to think about how it's going to land. I need to ask people how do you like to get your feedback? You know, how am I better going to serve you? And do the same for yourself. So spot in those moments where you're projecting onto somebody else something that you believe to be true of you. And then ask yourself the questions, why do I believe that? What can I do to change it? I think if we're much more present in the moment, you know, and as Randy shared earlier, it's about the skill of the person giving the feedback. So I think it's take a moment, just take a pause and think about, how might this land? How might this land if it goes the way I intended brilliantly? How might it land if they take it the wrong way? And is there anything I could change in the language that I'm going to use to enable that to land in the way that I want it to? And create those emotional memories for yourself, the people around you, and for your children, because I promise you, they become the safety net that we go to when the world gets too rocky for us.
Beautiful. Thank you, KIM-ADELE. Can you please share with our audience, your website is AuthenticAchievements.com. What can people find there?
Yeah, so you can find hopefully useful articles that are sharing hints and tips and actionable advice around how to grow your business, how to be a more effective communicator, how to really get out there and achieve whatever it is you have it in you to achieve. There's also podcasts and TV shows, and you can just get in touch directly. You know, if you've got a question, if you think I can help you, or if you've got a story that you want to share and you want to get your journey, your advice, your information out there, then please do get in touch. I believe life is all about listening to other people's stories and being inspired by them. So I'd love to hear yours.
Thank you so much. Please do reach out to KIM-ADELE. She'd love to interview you on her platform, and we'd love to have you on our show as well. You can go to usaglobaltv.com, book your session. Thank you again for another brilliant show, my friend, and you have a beautiful weekend. Bye, Pudding.
Thank you. Yeah, and apologies for Pudding joining us. Until next week, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you to Joe and to Randy Sue for engaging with us. We absolutely do love hearing from you. Our next show is coming up. As I mentioned, it's the power of etiquette and manners. I will be joined by our co-host, Philip Sykes, who is the founder of the British School of Excellence. And we will have, I believe, 8 of his etiquette coaches who are in training who will be joining us. Following that is fashion, travel, and fitness. And we will have Maria Rusova with us. She is joining us from the UK. Her company is Moda de la Maria, and she specializes in tweed. So we're going to be able to go into her store and look at some of the beautiful items that she has there. Following that, we'll be talking heads, which I am giving a presentation on how to create and deliver a successful event. And I sold meetings and events, employee recognition, and sales incentives for about 20 years. So I'm excited to share my knowledge with you on that. Followed by the United Kitchens, and our celebrity chef and nutritionist, Ricky McKenna, is whipping up a fabulous white bean soup. After that, we have the Listening Mentor with Caroline Heward, and she is the Harley Street stress expert over there in London. And we will be exploring topics related to relationships as well as effective communication. And then we close out the day with pet psychic Amina, and we are going to be talking about coexisting and sustainability. So do stay with us all day today. We'd love to have you. If you miss any of our shows, we have about 25 shows a week. You can go over to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio, and watch all of our shows there. Thank you again for being with us. We'll be back in less than 10 minutes.